بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. We left off speaking on the author's definition of al-mutawatir, of the khabar, whether it's a hadith or an athar or whatever the case it may be, is mutawatir. And also we spoke on that which isn't mutawatir. And anything, according to Al-Hafiz bin Hajar, rahimahullah, that is not mutawatir is considered to be ahad. So the author, he then says, ثُمَّ الْغَرَابَةُ إِمَّا أَن تَكُونَ فِي أَصْلِ السَّنَدِ أَوْ لَا. He also spoke about his opinion regarding, does khabar al-ahad give or yufid al-ilm or not? Does it or can it give decisive, conclusive, does it prove or does it give sure certain knowledge or not? Because some of the people of knowledge, and not necessarily the people of knowledge of hadith, some of them say that khabar ahad only gives dhann and it doesn't give ilm. And some people use the term ilm and others may say yaqeen. The author, Hafiz bin Hajar, says that it can give ilm, but a certain type of ilm, a certain type of yaqeen with conditions. And we mentioned that in the previous class before. We explained all of that. The levels of idrak, the levels of comprehending something in Islam. Yaqeen, dhann, etc. We explained all that in other classes. Okay, so the author, he then says, ثُمَّ الْغَرَابَةِ إِمَّا أَن تَكُونَ فِي أَصْلِ السَّنَدِ أَوْ لَا. So the first concept we want to speak about today is al-gharaba. And al-gharaba could be translated to mean as strangeness. And what's meant by gharaba is a hadith being, or an athar, a narration being what? Gharib. We explained what the word gharib meant linguistically and legislatively according to the author. He says that al-gharaba or gharib is of how many types? 2 types. The first one he says, fi, or we say here, what? We say what? Fi asl as-sanad. Fi asl as-sanad. Fi asl as-sanad. And the second one is fi khilafi asl as-sanad. Or fi ghayr asl as-sanad. And what's meant by asl as-sanad is we say الطرف الذي فيه الصحابي. في أصل السند what we said الطرف الذي فيه الصحابي. And other ulama, they may say أصل السند is other than that. We'll stick with this one view. What's meant by الطرف is the part in which the sahabi is in. In other words, here we have An-Nabi al-Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. After the Nabi al-Kareem, the next tabaqa in a hadith which is muttasil and not mursal. We've explained the term mursal in lessons on al-Bayquniyya, and it's also going to come in the book Nukhbatul-Fikr as well. We have a hadith which is muttasil. The next taraf, or the next tabaqa, is what? We explained this is tabaqat al-sahaba al-kiram radiyallahu anhum. Tabaqatu al-sahaba al-kiram. So the next person, or the next rawi after the sahaba, could be another companion, but let's say it's the tabi'een. Tabaqatu al-tabi'een. Al-tabi'een. So here, this sahabi or this tabaqa, the author is saying, if it's just one rawi, rawin wahid, or sahabi wahid, one narrator in this level, then you have one tabi'i or 2 or 3 or 4. He says that this is one of the 2 types of the gharib narration. The gharib narration, which is the narration whose chain or which chain is one narrator fi asl as-sanad. Okay? He says, or it's going to be awla. It's not going to be in the asl al-sanad. In other words, and one of the tabaqat of the tabi'een, it's just one. Or the atba' tabi'een, one. Even though it could be 2 sahabi or 5 sahabi. So we said that the gharib has 2 different categories according to the author. First is the gharib that has gharaba, one narrator in the asl al-sanad, and we explained that. Or it has one narrator in a place other than asl al-sanad. The author, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, فَالْأَوَّلُ الْفَرْضُ الْمُطْلَقِ. The first one is the asl al-sanad, is given the title, al-fardu al-mutlaq, which means absolute fard narration. It's absolutely, unconditionally fard. And a synonym for fard is what? Gharib. He then says, وَالثَّانِي الْفَرْضُ النِّسْبِي وَيَقِلُّ إطلاق الفردية عليه. This one here, في خلاف أو في غير أصل السند, is called what? الفرد النسبي, which means, we say it means what? Relative fard, or relatively fard. Is a conditional gharib narration. Everybody clear on that? So this is how the author classifies gharaba or gharib. 2 types. One is there's only one narrator in the asl al-sanad, and the second is later on after the sahabi there's one narrator. And each of these different scenarios and situations has a benefit, has a purpose, and also has a harm. To keep things brief and not to go too deep, the one companion narrating the hadith doesn't necessarily bring about a cause of concern or doubt. But when we have a atba', we have the followers of the tabi'een, for example, or narrating the hadith, and then this person has so many students and disciples, and only one of them narrates it without the rest of the major prominent disciples, perhaps that could be a cause of concern and alarm. We don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole, because that is but that is a much higher level of studies of the field of hadith. Okay? And when we get into the concept of al-ilal, hidden defects. Alright? What's important is the gharib hadith does not necessarily have to be weak. Doesn't necessarily, just because one narrator doesn't mean that it's weak. And it isn't a necessary condition that it has to be more than one narrator reporting it. As long as he or she fulfills the standards of a reporter, and as long as the report that he or she made fulfills the conditions, not being shadh, not being ma'lul, etc. Alright, so this is concrete work, basic groundwork of the later concepts, which are far more advanced. Everybody clear on this? The author, rahimahullah ta'ala, this is his view with regards to al-gharib and al-fard. He says that it is, if the only one companion narrates the narration, then in most cases the scholars of hadith call it gharib. They call it gharib. And if it's in another place besides the asl al-sanad, the original part of the isnad, he says it's fard nisbi. وَيَقِلُّ إِطْلَاقَ الْفَرْدِيَّةِ عَلَيْهِ. And in most cases the ulama don't call it hadith fard. In other words, this is a term that is commonly used and widely used by the scholars of hadith. They use the word fard, or they use the term fard, or the word of the term gharib. And as I said in brief, sometimes it means that it's weak, and sometimes it means that it isn't weak, but it's just fard. Alright? And we said that the ulama of hadith, they scientifically categorized every scenario or thing that could happen with regards to the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Authentic, inauthentic, man, woman, narration, narrator, etc. This is the concept of gharaba and gharib in brief. What is the fa'idah of it? Why is he speaking about it? We've just explained that to you. First and foremost is to classify, to categorize. Secondly is that there is a relation between weakness and between gharaba. Okay? And there lies no doubt, there are certain times and places in which one person narrating a hadith and not more than one, it could harm the narration. And there are other times and other places in which it isn't the case. Those are further details that can only be studied and only understood by people on a more advanced level. Everybody clear on that? In brief, we've given you the definition, the categories, the scenarios, and most importantly, we've given you the thamar, the fruit. The fruit. The author, he then says, rahimahullah ta'ala, وخبر الأحادي بنقل عدل تام الضبط متصل السند. He says here, غير معلل ولا شاذ هو الصحيح لذاته. The next thing that we want to take in today's session or class is, we say, تعريف الحديث الصحيح. تعريف الحديث الصحيح. Or beneath that we would say what? The khabar al-ahad. You say what? Which is al-maqbul. The accepted khabar ahad. Khabar al-ahad. Everybody understand this? The narration which is acceptable when it comes to ahad. And that's because the author said that the mutawatir narrations all give ilm, yaqini. It's totally authentic according to the author. Any narration which is mutawatir is automatically authentic. And the akhbar al-ahad, some of them are authentic and some of them are inauthentic, as we explained before. So he now wants to get into what are the conditions for a sahih hadith. What are the conditions for khabar wahid or khabar ahad being acceptable or being accepted? Everybody clear on this? Conditions for an acceptable / authentic narration. That's the second thing that we're going to discuss in this lesson. The author, he says, وَخَبْرَ أَحَادِ بِنَقْلِ عَدْلٍ. He says the khabar ahad, which is reported by someone who is adl. And this goes to show us, and this goes to teach us that what? The hadith is narrated. It's reported. It doesn't just fall from the sky. Or doesn't come from a sheikh's dream. Okay? Or from the sheikh's intuition. And from the sheikh, it comes from someone. It's tangible. It is passed down. It is narrated. Everybody clear on this, inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So therefore, moving on, the author rahimahullah, he says, بِنَقْلِ عَدْلٍ. You would say, the next thing you would say what? شُرُوطُ الحديث الصحيح. Now, we just said ta'rif, definition. Now we're saying conditions. Is it permissible or not permissible? Because it's not talking about halal and haram. But is it scientifically valid to define something with its description? Or to define something with its conditions? Alright? We say that they are all connected and they're all relative. If you give the conditions of something, it's also defining that thing. If you define the thing by describing it, it also gives you things which are its conditions. So it's unnecessary to be overcritical in these types of things like this. Especially because many of the ulama of the past did not directly speak about these things. And these conditions and issues like this were extracted and deduced. And not all of them are authentic and valid, which is another field of study later on. Okay? The ulama of the past and the ulama who came later on. When did they differ? Did they differ? Is there a difference in the way that they understood and used this different science or these different sciences with regards to hadith? But we don't want to get into that right now. What's important is the author says that the hadith or the khabar al-ahad, what is reported by someone who is adl, he says بِنَقْلِ عَدْلٍ تَامَ الضَّبْطِ, who has perfect precision, مُتَّصِلَ السَّنَدِ, with a continuous chain of narration. It isn't mu'allal, it doesn't have an illah, a hidden defect, nor is it shadh, irregular. It is considered to be as-sahih lidhatihi. It is the narration which is authentic in itself. It is sahih in itself. Everybody clear on this? So therefore, we've explained in our lessons on al-Bayquniyya the conditions for a valid or acceptable or genuine narration. We explained that in our lessons on al-Bayquniyya. So let's get down and dirty, as one may say. Nothing wrong with saying that. Inshallah, let's roll up our sleeves. That's what we mean. Let's get to the nitty gritty. Alright, let's break down, let's dissect the author's speech. Let's dissect the author's speech and let's get into the details of what he said. And let's also take some more from the lessons on al-Bayquniyya, because we've explained this in Bayquniyya and we said that this class is going to be on a higher level. Alright, so we want to get more, we'll have more detail. He says here, bi naqli adlin تام الضبط متصل السند غير معلل ولا شاذ. He says here خبر al-ahad. Break down ahad to mean, or khabar to mean what? Hadith. Because that's the most important concept. Ahad, break it down to mean what? غير متواتر. Break down غير متواتر to how many categories? مشهور. Then we have aziz. Then we have what? Gharib. Everybody clear on that? He says, binaqli adlin. When it is reported by someone who is adl. What is and who is an adl? What is the adl? What is the description? And who is considered to be adl? We say that an adl is someone who possesses some qualities and some characteristics. What are they? First and foremost, the word adl has several meanings in the Arabic language, coming from the verb adala. Sometimes the word adala can mean to turn away from someone, depending on how it's used and what letters it's used with. Okay? Sometimes the word adl can mean to be just. Sometimes the word adala, etc. The other meanings of it in the Arabic language. We want to focus on the technical meaning. We say that the adl is the person, first and foremost. This part of the lesson is called what? Shurutul adala. Shurutul adala. Or we say what? Awsaf al-adli, or al-rawi al-adl. And this concept of the conditions of adala pertain to another branch of the Islamic religion, or the Islamic sciences, which is ash-shahada, or ash-shahid, a witness. Witness slash narrator. It's a bubble that they both live in. There are some conditions and some descriptions that a narrator has that the witness must also have, and vice versa. And there are other things in which are specific to the narrator of hadith, and some are specific to the witness. And they aren't the same, and it's a scientific error or blunder for a person to say that they're the same. It's different. They're same, or they're similar, and they're also different. Everybody clear on this? And this also teaches us of those who jumble and mix things up. And they say that just because, or there are some similarities between the science of hadith and criticizing someone or refuting a mistake, that it's the same. And the principles are the same. 100% and everything is the same. That's wrong. That's scientifically wrong, and also based off of common sense. That doesn't make sense. To say that the sciences of hadith are 101% like the act of criticizing and refuting someone. That doesn't make any sense. How can something that is similar to the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, or the service of the Prophet ﷺ, how can that be something that is exact the same as refuting someone who comes 1,000 years, 14 years after the Prophet ﷺ? It doesn't even make sense. So just because there's some similarities does not mean that it is the exact same thing. That's common sense in life. There are things that are similar between Fulan and Fulan, but they're not the same people. They're not the same person. They're different. So therefore, there are some things which are similar and some things which are different with regards to adl and with regards to shahid, a just, pious witness. And we know that in Islam, a witness must be just and must be pious. You cannot have a witness who goes against the conditions and prerequisites of a just witness, and we're going to get to that. Bi'idhnillah subhanahu wa ta'ala here, we're going to stop in this session, and bi'idhnillah, hopefully, in our next session, we're going to break this down even more and shed some more light upon it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best.